So in my last 10-15 minutes, I want to revisit a story I shared with you because there's some takeaways that we will continue in the next class, because we're going to talk about some obstacles now. We've talked about Bhakti Yoga, this and that, but now let's just look at what's going on here. So let's talk about, we're talking about Prahlada here. So Prahlad was the son of a king, and was a son of a very narcissistic king. And and the king's name was Hiranyakashipu, and Shani will write you the spelling in her note to you later. He was a very egotistic person. He obviously didn't have a guru, didn't have any teacher, didn't have any satsang. So now I'm doing Ishwara remembrance. He was a lost being. Okay. Now, he was a tyrannical, I think, tyranny. He had a lot of tyranny. And one thing he wanted was he wanted to become a human god. He wanted to be worshipped. So he issued a mandate for all the citizens of his kingdom to worship him and remove the Hindu version of Ishwara known as Vishnu from the temples. But Prahlada had this practice of remembering Ishwara through the good, the bad, the ugly, the lovely, the high notes, the middle notes, all the notes were for Ishwara. So gave him a lot of conviction. So it was not nice for the king to have his own son not worship him. It was not a good example to set. He was embarrassed by the fact that his son kept worshipping Vishnu, which means he kept remembering the clean version of Ishvara, not the glamour version of Ishvara. He was really quiet. He didn't lecture his father or anything. It was just his personal business. He was very composed and calm. So his father threatened him. He remained calm and just continued with his practice. Then his father tried to have him thrown from top of a hilltop, but somehow with very minimal anything, he survived. Everybody said that was a miracle, but he was like, yeah, that's interesting that I have such an adversarial father and I have this fall. But if Ishvara wants me to fall and still come back to life, then yeah. And of course, his protest was to not worship his father. That was his protest. Then his father had him sit in the open blaze of fire, and his aunt, his father's sister, sat with him because she had some siddhi, some blessing to not get burnt in fire. But Prahlad didn't have any such blessing, but somehow her shawl, I think, slipped off and fell around him, and situations transpired that he was protected. And his love for Ishvara remained unyielding, and his father was tormented, upset, threw tantrums, locked him up in a chamber with venomous snakes. I'm sure he protected himself. He moved around so the snake couldn't get him, but he kept chanting Om Namo Narayanaya, which is Vishnu's mantra. And then he said, Father one day had a cataclysmic rage, and he said, are you delusional? And why do you keep remembering Vishnu? And he goaded him to say, where is Vishnu? Where is Vishnu? And he said, well, Vishnu is everywhere. Ishvara is everywhere. Oh yeah, he's everywhere. He's sneered. Is he in this pillar? This pillar made of bricks, is he? And he started kicking the pillar. And Prahlada said, yes, I believe he is. Have you seen him? No. But you think he's there? He's there. So then he started, kind of kicking at the pillar, the father, the narcissistic father. And at that moment, the pillar burst like a bursting star. And with a thunderous roar came Lord Vishnu in his avatar, in an expression of half lion, half human avatar, known as Narasimha. Nara means human, Simha means lion, Narasimha. And his eyes were blazing with an otherworldly blaze. And his mane was also with a fiery halo, and with every step that Narasimha avatar took, the ground just was like quaking beneath him. And he stood there, and um, and Prahlada had darshan, and his eyes just closed, and a little tear dropped. It's like, wow, he's here. I knew he's here, and I don't know what he looks. So if he chooses to look like this, that's fine too, because Ishvara can take on millions of species and millions of bodies in parallel universes and can surely emerge from pillar. What's the big deal? And then, Narasimha pounced upon the king, and the king had had some kind of a boon. Remember, this is mythology, and I'm going to unpack it for you. He had a boon that he cannot be killed by a human or an animal or something like that. I've not read the mythology lately, but that avatar was just the perfect avatar to break that boon, half animal, half human. And then it was like he can't be killed on earth, so he picked up the king and put him on his thigh. So he suspended in air. And then um, the Vedic gods are not, not, not they are not violent, but they are also not foolishly non-violent. And so he ripped apart. It was time for death, and it was the death that got in the hands of Narsimha Avatar. So it was a victory of the forces of light over darkness. And then Prahlad gazed upon Narsimha, the protector of his soul, and said, I see you everywhere. I think of you all the time. I see you in everything. You are not just in the pillar, you are the pillar of the universe. Or must have said some such words. And that's it. That's the end. So we can dismiss this story as mere mythology. There's a lot we get from this story, and I would like you to think about the middle note. I think the middle note got him there. Because he didn't even get crazy because he saw Narsim. I was like, yeah, you showed up from the pillar, but then you're the pillar of the universe. Yeah. So it's a teaching of unwavering Smarana, remembrance. When he was being thrown, and I'm not saying we should be okay to be thrown because he was just a child, 9 or 10-year-old, so he didn't really have much say. All he could do was hold on to his convictions, but then the supermind, the samashti, protected him. And so we are children of that samashti, and we are protected through this smarana. So unwavering remembrance. Despite numerous trials and tribulations, remaining resilient, inwardly resilient. And the realization of the omnipresence. It's not like, okay, now let's just start worshiping the pillars in the building. But it's like, yeah, you are the pillar of the universe, so you can show up from a pillar. And always the courage to speak the truth, despite such massive opposition from his father. There are many dialogues in this story between the father and the son And the father would give long, long sermons to the son, and the son would speak 2 words, and they were always the truth. He never buckled. And ultimately, it also shows that through Smarana, through remembrance, there is such divine protection. This is that hidden part that I can't predict for you, but I have received, and you may receive. So these are some of the teachings of Smarana, of remembrance. And next time I will teach you, or I'll share a story with you on kirtan, or singing or chanting God's name. And when I say God here, I mean the great omniscient dimension. I'm not just talking about a male God. I'm talking about the ultimate reality, which can show up as male, female, human, animal, in that perspective. So I hope this story of a young child who was a bhakta, who was clearly completing some Bhakti Yoga lessons in the laboratory of real life in this lifetime. And let's just look. If he was a bhakta, he could have just been born in Shunyaji's family. He didn't have to be born in Hiranyakashipu's family and be having such a mean father, right? But that doesn't always happen. Lakshmi here, my student, is such a beautiful soul, such a beautiful ambassador of Vedic sciences. But she talks about her early childhood openly. It was not easy. But perhaps those situations were necessary for Prahlad to ascertain and confirm his own conviction. He just had to say many times no to his father and yes to Ishvara. That's it. And that is why many times our very painful, difficult situations are also orchestrated by Ishvara. And it is not that Prahlad may not have had more pleasant conversations with his father, more persuasive conversations with his father, and at some point he just became silent. And at some point he only words was Vishnu is. That's it. There is only Vishnu. There is only Ishvara. And he must have prayed for his father too, that his inner Ishvara wake up, but then the outer Ishvara had to come and put that unit to rest. You've gone crazy. This unit's gone crazy. The ego's gone crazy. It will start again. It will start again. That's what death is. It's not destruction. It is the rebooting of the ego. I hope this story helps you. Continue contemplating on the middle note. Continue contemplating on how the middle note. We even notice Prahlad's relatively middle note even during darshan. We don't hear this long, tall story and, oh my goodness, I need to write a bestseller now and I'm going to take a tour now and this happened. And no, we just hear of this really quiet person, and because he was born in a king's family, he's like, yeah, okay, now I'm going to run the kingdom. So he just did his duty. In whatever field he was placed in to the best of his capacity. But Prahlad said no. No to falsehood. Because, if he had said yes to his daddy, he would be the most pampered prince. But he said no. So look at his conviction, look at his strength, look at his discernment, look at the way he played this whole thing. What a mythology. And when I was told these stories and when I heard them, and if you've grown up in India and you've heard them, All you hear about is Vishnu is so great. But I say, look at Prahlada. Prahlada is so great. And look at what his mind was able to attract. The whole universal mind, the universal divine mind showed up at his assistance. So with this, with great joy in continuing to teach you and learn from you as I teach Bhakti Yoga, I'm also enjoying your shares on the community forum. They're so beautiful. Please continue to share and write. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.